Hello and welcome back, YouTubers. It's been a while since I've been making videos. Today I got something for you. I'm doing an oil change on my Audi Q5. But I'm not just doing any oil change, it's not an oil change video. This is kind of an experiment that I've seen other people do on the internet because I don't have regular oil, I have Valvoline Restore and Protect Premium Full Synthetic. And I've seen people make videos with this oil on the internet showing that it cuts down on oil consumption if you have an oil burning engine, and it also apparently works really well at removing deposits in the oiling system, not deposits behind the valves or in the intake tract. That's a completely different subject, but no, this is supposed to remove sludge deposits inside of the engine. And I've seen people do lots of various videos with it with varying degrees of success. So I'm going to do this on my car. Now, this might help, it might not help, but let me give you guys a little bit of a backstory, okay? My car has 260,000 miles and some change. It's over 250,000 miles on it, and it uses oil. It consumes oil at the rate of about 1 quart every 600 miles. That's a lot. That is way more than I would ever tolerate from any car, which brings me to the other part of this. So I'm gonna run an experiment with this where I already have my drain pan and the oil is draining out of the engine. I'm gonna do an oil change on this, use this oil, and then based on what I've seen on the internet, it's recommended that you change your filter at 1,000 miles and then about 3,000 miles interval after using this, because I guess they're saying that so much deposits are pulled out of the engine that it clogs up the oil filter and it may cause problems. So I usually buy the kind of expensive oil filter, and I say kind of because the difference between the cheap one and the expensive one is $4. Okay, it's not a huge delta. I bought the cheap one this time just because I plan on changing this filter out after 1,000 miles. I'm not gonna buy a super expensive filter to get rid of it after 1,000 miles. I'm just gonna use the cheap one, change it at 1,000 miles, use another cheap one, change it at 2,000-3,000 miles, depending on the results that I get after 1,000 miles. And I'm gonna see if this improves the engine at all, if it makes it consume less oil. Because that's basically my only problem I have with this engine. It's burning oil. I can see, if I get onto an on-ramp and I accelerate hard, I can just see a plume of smoke going out the back. Plus there's, that oily film deposit that you get on the back of your car when it's burning oil, like if you have a turbo that's going out. That's what I have going on in the back of my car. So there's absolutely no question my car is burning oil. Way more oil than I would like. For me, this experiment really doesn't make sense, just because even if I use this and it pushes my oil adding intervals from 600 miles to, let's say, 1,500 miles. Let's say it triples it, then I can run 1,800 miles before adding a quart of oil. I still have every intention of pulling the engine out of that car. I'm gonna pull the engine, within the next 2-3 months and do a refresh. I'm gonna put, new connecting rod bearings and new piston rings, and then all new seals, and of course I'm going to do the timing chain set because it's got 250,000 miles. So there is no scenario with this oil that's going to stop me from pulling the engine out of this car. But for the sake of experiment and seeing if this will actually make a difference for myself and for you guys, I have no horse in this race. Valvoline isn't giving me any money. Nobody's helping me do this. But yeah, just for the sake of science, I'm going to do an oil change with this. And then the reason I have 2 gallons is because my car uses 6 quarts of oil. So I'm going to use this and then a quart off of this. And then I'm going to use this to add quarts as needed while I'm driving the car. So I'm probably going to add 1 quart at 500 miles, and then the next 500 miles I'm going to pull the oil filter and then add a quart, and then I'm going to keep adding quarts until this is done, and then pull the oil filter again, and I'll look at the oil filter. I don't know that there would be any visible cues that this oil is taking out large deposits. I'm going to look anyway. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't, well, I kind of expected that. But the main thing that I'm looking for here is I want to see if this changes the intervals in which I have to add oil. I'm going to see if I can go longer than 500 miles between, well, it depends on my driving. Highway is going to be 500 miles. In town, believe it or not, it goes 600 miles between having to add a quart of oil. So we'll see if this improves that situation at all. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Either way, the engine is getting pulled the first quarter of 2025, so it doesn't matter to me, but it might matter to you. So I'm gonna change the oil, and I don't know, I guess that might be the end of this video, or I might continue this video with me doing a 1,000 mile update. We'll see how it goes. If you haven't watched my previous videos of me working on this, this is a 3.2 liter V6 dual overhead cam, variable cam on the intake and exhaust. And so down here I have my drain pan, and my oil is draining. It's pretty much done draining now. It's been sitting like that for about 20 minutes now. And then over here I have my drain plug, which I'm going to reinstall. I'm going to pull this filter, and the filter has this hex cap on it. I don't know what size it is exactly in millimeter, but this big wrench, you buy this big wrench if you have a toe ball hitch you want to remove, because there are typically two different size nuts on them, and you use this wrench for that. Well, it also fits right on here perfectly. And this side that I'm using is actually a 1.5 inch box wrench, and I use that to loosen it, and then I can take my hand and take it off the rest of the way. So I'm just going to take that off, take out the filter, put this filter on. One of the problems that I see on this, on top of burning oil, is that the oil becomes very dark very quick. Like, I can change this oil and put brand new oil in here, and I would say within, you know, the first 1,500 miles, the oil gets really dark in appearance, which that's characteristic of having blow-by. You know, if you have an engine with blow-by, you're gonna have that happen. There's really no getting around it, but that's one of the reasons why I say I'm pulling this engine regardless of what this oil experiment does. This is the filter. I just pulled it out of there, and it is the same as every other time I've changed the oil. You know, I pull these filters, and I usually look down in here in between the cracks, and as usual, there's never any noticeable signs of deposits. I mean, you could look down in that crack and there's a little bit of crud in there. Let me see if I can get a flat screwdriver or something. So if I go in here with this pick and just scrape along that edge, yeah, there's basically nothing on there. There's no deposits on this filter whatsoever. So, you know, from what I can see and from what the oil that I'm currently using is picking up, there are no deposits in this engine. If there are, it's never making it to the oil filter, because this oil filter, besides being extremely dark in color, and that's a discoloration purely from the color of the oil, but other than that, there's nothing on this filter to indicate that there's any kind of sludge or anything in the engine. So I'm gonna toss this one in the trash. You know what, I might hold on to this one, so I'm gonna set this over here in the corner, but you know, as a point of reference. And I'm gonna go put the other filter in and finish my oil change, and I guess I'll see you guys on the other half of the video. The oil change is done, and so I checked my level and it's right on the full mark. Exactly. So if you can, if it'll focus, oh, there we go. So see, yeah, it's right on the full mark. And I guess that's it for now. Just all that's left to do is drive it around a lot. I can typically, with the amount of driving I do, I can typically rack up about 500 miles in a week. So I guess I'll see you guys in 2 weeks when I conclude the first part of this experiment at 1,000 miles and see if anything has changed. Okay guys, I got an update for you. So I've been driving the car. I'm right at 1,000 miles. So what happened is, earlier on I said that my car uses a quart of oil about every 500 miles or so, give or take. Depends on road conditions, whether I'm driving highway or in town, whatever. But it's usually right, we're talking a difference of 100 miles. So maybe 450, maybe 550, depending on driving conditions. So I drove the car, and my first time that the oil light came on, so this has oil level monitoring, and when it gets a quart low, it'll come on and beep at you. And the first time it came on, it was right at it was like 580 or something like that. So not outside of the normal spectrum, it was normal. It was 580, whatever. I add a quart of oil, fine, and then I've been driving again. Now the oil light just came on me again, and let me show you what's going on. We are at 254 miles, and that oil light, that green light right on the top of my phone screen right there, you can see, is showing it just came on like 4 miles ago, and I got here to this parking lot. I'm about to put a quart of oil into it, and the oil that I'm using to fill it back up is Restore oil. Okay, I have more of the oil. I have a quart in the trunk, so I'm gonna put that in there now. But I've never ever had this car use a quart of oil in 250 miles. That has never ever happened, not even close. I mean, like, I'd pull a 3,000-pound trailer, and I'm using, it'll be about 400 miles using a quart of oil. So I haven't towed anything. I haven't been in any heavy stop and go traffic. It's not particularly warm outside. This is December in Florida. This is December in Florida, so it's 68 degrees outside. It's not the snow belt, but it's also not hot outside to where I would burn excessive oil. There's no reason or excuse why I'm using this much oil. So I don't know if maybe I'm driving excessively hard, but I don't think so. Here, let me show you. So I reset my fuel mileage whenever I fill the tank up. So right now I have between a half and a quarter left. I drove 254 miles when the oil light came on, and I filled the tank up at the same time. And so 24.2 miles per gallon. I think that is since I last drove the car. And then no, this is since I last started the car up. It's 25.5. 24.2 is the last time I reset it, which was when I filled the tank up. So I'm not driving the car hard. I'm not driving excessively, speeding down the road to consume a bunch of oil. I'm actually driving fairly conservative. My average fuel mileage is about what this car should get on the highway. So I'm gonna put a quart of oil, reset my mileage, and we'll see where I am by the time I require another quart of oil. But tomorrow, since I've already driven 1,000 miles, tomorrow it's kind of late now. I don't want to deal with this right now. So I'm gonna go to AutoZone tomorrow, get a cheap oil filter. I'm gonna change the oil filter, and then I'm gonna cut the oil filter open, the one that's in here, because this is the first one that I put in since I did the oil change. And so I'm gonna cut that one open, visually inspect it, see if there's anything that I can notice that's substantial in there as far as gunk or any kind of deposits or anything like that. I'm not expecting anything because this engine was fairly clean the last time when I pulled the valve covers, but whatever. I'm gonna cut it open and look anyway. So this is where we are on this experiment. It's apparently consuming twice as much oil as it did before. It's not leaking. My driveway is perfectly dry. So we'll see. So here we are, 13 miles after my oil change. I knew I said I was going to do it at 1,000 miles, but we're at 1,300 miles, not 13,000, 1,300. And I just pulled the oil filter. So here are the two oil filters side by side. This one had 7,500 miles on it, and this one has 1,300 miles on it. So you can see this one has 5 times as many miles, but this one has the Valvoline Restore. This one is substantially lighter in color. You can tell the color difference between the two of them. This one is really dark. See, even if I move it over here, it's not a camera trick or the lighting or anything like that. This one is substantially lighter, but it only has 1,300 miles on it. The thing I've noticed is that the oil discoloration is minimal on this. Usually by now the oil has become very dark. There is oil on this dipstick, you just can't really see. It's a little bit dark. You can see by that minimum mark, you can see it's a little bit dark. But yeah, so the oil isn't darkening as much as it would with the previous oil. This filter, I'm gonna cut both these open and lay them out side by side. I don't really see any deposits on this right now the way it is, but I'm gonna cut it off on both ends and stretch it out and take a look, and we'll see if there's any noticeable difference between this one, which I just been running synthetic oil, or this one that I've been using the Valvoline Restore oil on. Because I've heard people say that after 1,000 miles there's substantial amounts of gum and buildup and deposits that were removed and picked up by the oil filter. So we're gonna see if that's true for my engine or not. Now that is not absolute. If you don't see deposits on this, that doesn't mean that there are no deposits on anybody's engine. I'm just saying that for my use, we're gonna see what the results are. If there's deposits hidden in there that I can't see, or if there isn't. We're gonna find out right now. All right, as far as I can tell, there is no difference between this oil filter that's been using the Valvoline Restore and this oil filter that I've just been using regular full synthetic oil. There's nothing in here, like there's no deposits in here whatsoever. There's a little bit of darkness in the middle of the creases, but even if I scrape it with this, there's nothing on here. There's no deposits. Okay, I don't know if maybe my engine at 260,000 miles was just exceptionally clean, but there's no difference between this one that has 7,000 miles and this one that has 1,300 miles. There's no difference whatsoever. So Valvoline Restore isn't getting any more deposits than my regular oil is, and it's definitely not helping my oil consumption. If anything, my oil consumption has gotten worse with the Valvoline Restore than it was with the regular conventional, well, not conventional, but the regular full synthetic oil that I had been using. So I already bought another gallon of the Valvoline Restore. I'm gonna keep using it because since I have to keep adding oil every 500 miles or so. So I'm gonna keep adding that oil until there's no more of that gallon left, and then I'm going to do an oil change, put my regular filter in, and then start back running my regular full synthetic oil, because I don't really see any improvement. I see no gains to be had by buying an oil that's almost 50% more expensive. Nothing is getting better in this engine. Now, are these results absolutely conclusive? Does that mean that it's going to be like that in every engine? I don't know. All I know is that in my engine, nothing has improved. This was an experiment for no other purpose than learning that I shouldn't have conducted this experiment. But now, Valvoline Restore on an engine that's been well maintained for 260,000 miles makes absolutely no difference. It doesn't improve fuel economy. It doesn't improve oil consumption. And it doesn't pick up any deposits. I guess there's no deposits to be picked up, so that's the end of it. Okay, so here we are again, needing to add oil. I got 258 miles out of the last quart that I put. The oil light just came on. I'm on my way home. So it's all over the place. Last time it was 300, this time it's 250, but one time it was actually the same as it usually was with my previous oil, and all the other times it's been substantially lower. So my oil consumption is definitely up. There is no doubt about it. I have 1 quart left of the Valvoline Restore that I'm going to add right now, and then the next time that my oil light comes on, I'm going to do a complete oil change and get rid of all of this oil. Hopefully, whatever is going on that's making me burn twice as much oil as I normally do is going to go away when I put the oil that I have been putting in. When I put that back in, it'll go back to 500. But I don't know. Maybe it'll stay the same and I'll start burning, a quart of oil every 250, 300 miles. In which case, I'm just gonna have to fast track my mild engine rebuild to get this oil consumption under control. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna add the quart when I get home. I'm about 4 miles from home, and then we'll see how far that takes me. All right, so we've reached the end of this test summary, I guess, for the Valvoline Restore Oil. I put in the last quart a few days ago, and my oil light just came on. And let me show you. My oil light just came on, and I drove 380, well, about 380 miles is what on the last time that I put a quart of oil in here. So it's been all over the place. I've had it as low as 250. I've had it as high as 500. I'm gonna make a summary video when I'm sitting down at home and I'm not driving on the highway. I'm on my way home right now, and let you guys know pretty much what my assessment is of this oil. So give me a second. Okay guys, so I got home, took a shower. I feel like a human being again. I had to shave and shower. It's been a long day at work. And as I just said, my oil light just came on, and I used the last quart of Valvoline Restore. So I had bought 2-gallon jugs, and I've been using that to fill my car up as the oil light came on. So 1 quart at a time, I'm adding it up. And I've used 10 quarts, and in those 10 quarts, I have driven 3,100 miles. So my oil consumption has been all over the place. I've had it be as high as 500 miles in 1 quart. I've had it be as low as 250 in 1 quart, and everywhere in between. It's not very consistent. And so my average is about 300 miles on a quart of oil. That is substantially lower than I've been getting. Normally I get high 400s, low 500s, depending on if I'm driving on the highway or in town. If I'm on the highway, it'll be high 400s. If I'm driving all in town, it'll be low 500s. I've never seen anything below 400 miles using a quart of oil. Even, I had a trailer on the back of my car towing a substantial amount of weight for over 60 miles. Didn't make a difference. It never was this bad. So to summarize, my fuel mileage has not improved. It also hasn't gotten any worse. Driving quality, I haven't noticed any difference. It hasn't gotten better. It hasn't gotten any worse. Idle quality hasn't gotten any better or worse. I don't know that I noticed any more or less smoke out of the tailpipe. I would assume that since it's burning more oil, that it's letting more smoke out of the tailpipe. I started this test when it was really hot outside. Like the average day was in the 90s. Right now we're in wintertime. And today, I think yesterday it got down in the high 40s. So I've driven in all ranges of temperature. Well, not all, but substantial range temperature differences. I've gone from 90 degrees to 40 degrees driving, no difference. So do I think the Valvoline Restore works? I don't know. I'm one person doing one test, driving one car. So for me, I would have to say it definitely did not work. But keep in mind, this is an Audi, and it was already burning oil, and it has 260,000 miles on it. So it's very high mileage. However, with the exception of burning a lot of oil, the engine itself actually runs perfectly. I have no problem with that car at all. It drives great. It runs great. I run it on the highway. I'll go long trips. I'll tow stuff with it. It does everything I need it to do. It's just consuming oil. So what I'm going to do is this weekend, I'm going to do an oil change. I'm going to drain out all the Valvoline. I'm going to put the synthetic oil that I'd been running before. Hopefully, my high oil consumption is purely a trait of the Valvoline oil, and I'll go back to 400 or 500 miles between adding a quart. But there's always a possibility that something has changed internally in the engine that is causing it to use that much oil now, and even switching back, it's still going to be about 300 miles between adding quarts of oil. For me, I don't care. I'm planning on tearing this engine down next month anyway, so I absolutely, short of it just pouring oil out the bottom of it, I don't really care. I'm just going to drive it till the end of next month, and then I'm going to pull the engine, do a refresh, new rings, new seals, new connecting rod bearings, things like that, and hopefully it'll give me another couple 100,000 miles of use, and I'll just go from there. But yeah, I would have to say it's a hard pass for me on the Valvoline Restore. I've seen lots of videos where people say it's a miracle cure and it stops the oil burning and it stops the oil consumption. That is the opposite of what I experienced. That is my honest assessment of what has happened. I really went into this hoping that it would work. I wasn't expecting a miracle cure, but if it went up from, let's say, 500 miles every quart to 700 miles every quart, I would have been happy with that result. I really, really wanted this to work. I wanted to like it based on all of the videos that I see on YouTube of everybody making and saying how this is so wonderful and it works so great. I was rooting for you, Valvoline. But in my instance, in my car, no, it didn't work. So anyway, that's it for it. That's it for this video, guys. Have fun out there. Stay safe. All right, so I have a final update on my Valvoline Restore. So I ran the Restore, and like I said, my mileage between oil fill-ups went down dramatically. Went down by like 40-50%. So it was bad. I did an oil change, and now I'm running my Mobil 1 as I normally do. And as of right now, I've driven 500 miles. So the last time I went down a quart and the thing came on, it was at 460 or something like that, and I added a quart right away and reset my mileage. Right now I'm at 500 miles and my oil warning hasn't gone off. So let me show you real quick. So you see I'm at 500 miles, 500.3, and it hasn't gone off yet, but I mean it's pretty close to see, there's nothing reading on the oil level, so I'm guessing it's gonna trigger any moment now. But as of right now, I've been able to drive 500 miles, and what that means is that the Valvoline Restore that was causing me to have to add a quart once every 250 to 300 miles, it didn't change anything inside the engine. Nothing has changed. Nothing has happened. Performance hasn't improved. It hasn't decreased. Fuel mileage hasn't improved or decreased. And oil consumption has not improved or decreased. The fact that I was having to add more oil, add oil more often, was purely a characteristic of that specific oil. Because once I started running the Mobil 1, it went right back to 500 miles between adding quarts of oil. So, like I said, I'm one person doing a one test on one car with 266,000 miles on it. Your results may vary, but for me, there was no difference. The results are inconclusive. There's nothing that has changed by running the Valvoline Restore in my car. So there you have it. Take it with a grain of salt. Do what you want to do. Just know that not everybody has stellar results when they run this stuff through their engine. Some people have no results whatsoever.